Hello and welcome to the Edu Next AI Salon. Tonight is not just another discussion about technology, it is the opening of a space, the Edu Next AI Salon, created for the kind of conversations that don't usually fit into conferences, slides, or formal panels. This salon lives at the intersection of education, entrepreneurship, leadership, and artificial intelligence, where the questions are better than tools, and the focus is not only on what AI can do, but on how humans must think, decide, and lead in an age shaped by it. We begin this series with a simple belief. The future of learning will not be determined by algorithms alone, but by the judgment, values, and the imagination of the people guiding institutions and shaping minds. That is why this conversation is designed as fireside, reflective, thoughtful, and human centered, and why it is such a privilege to open this salon with a leader whose work lives exactly at that intersection. I am honored to be joined by Dr. Thomas Cavanagh, Vice Provost for Digital Learning at the University of Central Florida. Dr. Thomas leads digital learning strategy at one of the largest universities in the United States, where questions of scale, quality, access, and instructional design are not theoretical, they are lived realities. What I deeply appreciate about Dr. Thomas's work is that it sits at the intersection of technology, pedagogy, and human judgment. His leadership reminds us that digital learning is not about tools alone, but about how humans learn, think, and grow in complex systems. Dr. Thomas, thank you for joining us today. It is a privilege to have you in this opening conversation of Edu Next AI Salon.
Well, thank you, Dr. Saeed. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be on the program.
Dr. Tom, thank you again for being with us today. I'd love to start with a big picture question. From your perspective, what is the biggest misconception educators and entrepreneurs still have about AI today?
Yeah, it's a great question because AI seems to be the topic of so much discussion. And I think too often we think of AI as as a as an application that you might buy, some tool that you might, license for your campus or for an individual. And yes, it is that, but I think at its heart, AI is like less an application than it is an engine. And if there's an analogy to be made, maybe it's that it's not a light bulb, it's electricity that will power so many other things. Yes, the light bulb was transformative when it was created, but even more transformative was what was powering it, which was electricity, which really completely transformed the world in so many ways. And I think AI is very similar in many ways. There's a story I like to tell. I didn't make it up. I heard it from someone, but I really like it. That is, imagine the streets of New York City around the turn of the 20th century, so 1900. And if you looked at the streets, you would see a lot of people walking and some horses and some carts. And that was how people transported themselves and goods around the city. And if you looked a mere 30 years later, maybe even 20 years later, it would be a completely different scene. Instead, there would be automobiles, and the revolution of the internal combustion engine completely changed how we transported goods, the efficiency of commerce, and it just basically changed the world and ultimately led to things like air travel and space travel and all kinds of other things. And 20 years, 25 years is a really short amount of time to completely transform something as fundamental as human transportation. And I think AI is kind of at 1900 now. And what will it be in 20 years? I think the transformation that we're going to see is because it's not so much a tool or an application, but because it's like the internal combustion engine, or it's like electricity that will power so many other things that leverage AI to accomplish whatever it is, and not just in education, but I think across society.
Yes. So I'm curious, do you think the challenge is more about how we use AI or how we understand its role in the human experience of learning and leading?
Um, maybe a little bit of both. I do think that in order, like electricity doesn't do us any good unless we really understand how to harness it for good and to do something, to do something valuable and impactful with it. And then I think it's the same with AI. It, you can do dumb things with it, right? Like you can use it to write jokes or silly songs or something, but you could also use it to help cure cancer and, solve huge problems in society, logistical problems and, um, hunger and like all kinds of other things that you can maybe point it at that have really challenged humanity throughout all of our history. Maybe there's a way to help. I mean, AI can look and read all of the latest scientific literature on cancer research that a human being never could, and synthesize all of that and give some input to a doctor. Ultimately, it's the doctor's human responsibility to make a diagnosis and to have the conversation with the patient and to decide on a course of treatment. But why shouldn't the doctor use all of the tools at his or her disposal to to treat that patient and to give them the best possible chance that they possibly can?
So if we go back to the misconception of AI using, do you think this misconception will continue in the future?
Maybe for a while. I mean, online learning's been around for 30 plus years, and there's still an awful lot of misconceptions about online learning. And AI may have the same. There's everybody on that bell curve of a spectrum of opinions on artificial intelligence right now. Some people are really early adopters. They want to use it like crazy and really kind of are excited by the prospect. Some people sort of waiting and seeing, all right, I'll try it for these things. I'm comfortable here, but not here. And then you have other people that are like, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's going to destroy, academic integrity or whatever. I think you're always going to have some skeptics along the way, but AI may be a little bit different from, say, online learning in that it's so pervasive throughout all of society. It's showing up in the workplace, in healthcare, and all these other places that it's going to be pretty hard to avoid. And if you are a real resistor to it, if you're kind of a Luddite when it comes to AI, it's going to be really hard to hold back the tide, as they say. You can't. It's going to come in whether you want it or not. So how do you surf that wave, as they say, instead of trying to hold back the wave?
So what does it cost us if we don't correct this misconception?
Well, I think if we don't correct the misconception, we we risk not being able to fully use AI to do the good work that we're all charged with. So for us, it's about educating students and preparing them for citizenship and careers. And if we can't use AI both to do that, to do it sort of most efficiently and effectively, but then also to prepare them for a workplace that's going to expect them to know how to use it, then I don't think that we are living up to our responsibility. I think it's incumbent on us as educators to make sure that the students that we're educating are prepared for the workplace of the future, which includes AI, whether we like it or not. So I think we have to address those misconceptions and those myths so that we're not preventing our students from being properly prepared to go into a world that's going to expect them to have some fluency with it, if not even facility with it.
Yes, that is a powerful foundation, especially when we consider how much AI is being talked about as a productivity tool. Yet, in entrepreneurship and innovation, there is something uniquely human that AI can't replicate. So, If AI can generate ideas, strategies, and even business models, what remains uniquely human in entrepreneurial judgment, and how should education protect and strengthen that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we've been grappling with here in our division of digital learning at UCF because we've been experimenting with a lot of different AI tools in how do we best use them to build and deliver and support online learning at UCF. And we've learned some things along the way in just our short couple year journey of doing this. AI is really good at synthesizing large quantities of information and summarizing and bringing that all kind of together. But what we have found is, at least so far, it's it's really it's really good at sort of this macro thing. But when you get to the micro nuance, fine detail, it's not as good. And that's where the human being is much better. So how many times, like I'll think about my own personal use of AI, like I might use it to help me do a first draft of a document. It's like maybe a letter or a memo or something. And that's great to get me started. But then I get in there and I start editing and I start fixing things. I'm like, all right, that's not quite what I wanted to say. And it might get me started to kind of synthesize down, but the fine details and the nuance is a human endeavor, at least so far. And recognizing where the where the AI limitations are, where it stops, and where the human picks up, I think is really useful because you want to see it as a collaborator, not as something to replace human. It's something that can help you as a tool to be maybe more efficient and do what machines do best. As I mentioned, a doctor couldn't read every scientific journal article that's ever been written in the past 10 years. AI can and can tell the doctor, here's what they say in a summarized form. But then the doctor's got to go to that next level of nuance and say, okay, what does it mean for my patient? And teachers do the same thing for their students. The other thing I think to keep in mind about AI, and you may hear me say this more than once through our conversation, is that it it doesn't originate anything. It is providing you with a predictive set of words or images or sounds or whatever it is, um, based upon a data set of things that exist already. It's not creating anything original. They're just
Yes.
everything that it does is a derivation of something else. And you mentioned entrepreneurship, but true entrepreneurs are creators. They are creating original ideas, and institutions that see themselves as entrepreneurial. AI can help with implementation and planning and maybe some of that. But I think the true original creative ideas is still uniquely human. AI isn't doing that. AI is just, imitating the many
Yes.
creative original ideas of so many other people, which kind of goes back to like what's important to keep humans in the center of an educational experience. The humanities remain as important as ever in this increasing technological world because it's the humanities that, the arts and, literature and all of those kinds of things, that kind of philosophy reminds you that that there's a purpose behind the technology. It can be pointed at things, but at the end of the day, it's a human that is aiming it and using it.
Yes, I can't agree more with you. For many educators, teach opportunity recognition uh, is a basic thing in entrepreneurship, but that frame might be changing in AI saturated world. What new cognitive skills must entrepreneurs develop that we are not yet teaching?
Um, that's a good question, because entrepreneurship is something that I think you don't have to be a business student to really, or a business major or something to really appreciate. Um, I think that understanding that role of AI as a collaborator, not as a replacement, is is a really important thing to keep in mind because I think a temptation of a lot of new technologies is that, oh, this is going to, replace human beings. And you can point to examples of that, like, we no longer need elevator operators because we have the technology now for anybody to get in an elevator and press a button and go to the floor that they want. We don't need film developer technicians because everything in film is digital now. And there's all kinds of examples of professions that have gone away because of the evolution and development of technologies. But AI is a little bit different in that I think it's, like I said, I think it's an engine and it can be used as a tool. But at the end of the day, um, it can make us more efficient, but you still need to have that human being in the middle of the process, whatever it may be. And therefore, I think that we have to keep in mind the mindset of collaboration, not replacement. It may end up resulting that we may not need quite as many people for some jobs because AI can make the process more efficient, but it's never going to eliminate humans from that process, whatever it might be. And how do we address the efficiencies that and the downstream effects of maybe fewer people required for a particular job or something because of automation or because of AI? That it's not a new problem. If you look at robots on the assembly line or other kinds of things where people have been replaced, it's something we've confronted over the years. We just may have to confront it at maybe a faster scale than we have in the past because of the rapid growth of AI.
So this will take me for another questions. What happens if we don't evolve the teaching in the way you described here? That collaboration meets the education as a center, educator as a center of the process. What will happen if we can't do that? Especially in the Middle East, we don't have this kind of uh, um, putting the students as the center of our teaching experience. So what will happen if we can't do that?
If you can't if you can't ensure that the human is at the center or that the human is viewing it
Yes.
as a collaboration tool, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you can't, then you're either not going on one side, you won't be able to fully leverage AI to accomplish your mission, your educational mission. Or on the
Mhm.
other side, you're going to end up replacing people and it's going to be an AI generated, somewhat cold experience for students or whatever it might be, instead of having ensuring that the kind of the human core of that. I mean, the risk is on both sides. Honestly, I think that the way to go is sort of a measured middle way of using it, as I said, as a collaboration tool, but without overusing it or expecting too much of it or underusing it and not taking full advantage of the benefits of it. I think maybe if you're struggling with that, I think you need to look at what side of that equation are you on? Are you leaning more towards we're going to over rely on it or are we under relying on it and do your best to try and move that needle back towards the middle?
For
Okay.
educators and academic leaders who feel both excited and overwhelmed by AI, what mindset shift would you most encourage them to make today?
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'll repeat this concept of AI as collaborator, um, and view it as an opportunity to assign the maybe lower value or activities that are better done by computers to the computers and keep the things that are better done by humans on the human. And sometimes that can be hard to figure out. It takes some experimentation, some trial and error to figure out what is the best thing for the computer to do and what is the best thing for the human being to do. And sometimes it's a little different than it has been in the past because AI can do things that computers didn't always wasn't always accessible to the everyday user of a regular, laptop or desktop computer or phone. I have AI, multiple AI apps on my phone. It's crazy. I can just talk to it now and it gives me answers to things, and it's very useful. But relying on it to do things that it can't do, or expecting it to do things that it can't do, is dangerous, as is currently over relying on it and trusting it too much. It's gotten better, but it still hallucinates and it still makes mistakes. And I think you have to quality check anything AI is doing to ensure that it's true and it's real.
Yes.
Because I have found that even, tools like ChatGPT and Copilot and Grok and all of the others that I play around with, Gemini, it wants to please me, right? It wants to make me happy. And in some ways, I think it's almost obsequious, where like it over compliments me. Like, that's a great question. And like, well, it's just a question. It's not a great question. You don't have to tell me I'm so smart for asking that question. Just answer that question. And then it always wants to keep going. It's got some built in, would you like me to do this? Would you like this at the end of whatever answer it gives you? So it's a little sneaky in that it wants to keep you engaged on it too. So I think another mindset that to keep in mind is use it transactionally for the thing you need, but it's not your friend and it's not a person. And despite how natural language it seems and how much it seems to really care about you, it's not real. It's all fake. And I know that it's something to keep in mind for our students. There have been cases where there've been, especially like in high school or lower, there've been some really tragic situations where the AI has told the student to harm themselves or something, and they have. And there've been some mental health issues with some of these students. Educating our students all of this that I'm talking about, that it's not a real thing and it doesn't really care about it, and it's a tool and it's a machine that's predicting and trying to make you happy and tell you things that you want to hear. Just keep all of that in mind. It's about the kind of digital fluency that we have to make sure, and digital literacy that we have to make sure that both our faculty and our students keep in mind.
Yes, thank you. What stands out from this conversation is a powerful reminder. AI may accelerate thinking, generate options, and expand possibility, but judgment, meaning, and responsibility still live with us. Technology can suggest, but humans must decide. And in entrepreneurship, in education, and in leadership, those decisions shape not just outcomes, but futures. Dr. Tom, thank you for grounding this discussion in such a thoughtful and human way. Your insights help us see beyond the tools and into the deeper questions of judgment, creativity, and responsibility in AI-shaped world. What we have explored here is not simply how AI changes what we do, it is how it challenges who we are as thinkers, creators, and leaders. And that naturally leads us to the next layer of this dialogue, because individual mindset is only part of the story. The real question is what happens when entire institution must navigate this same transformation. Let us shift our lens from people to systems and explore how universities themselves are responding to the age of AI.